Tiger Woods, not always an admirable person, I think it's fair to say, but almost a preternaturally admirable sportsman. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair juxtaposition. As a sports person, I think he's the most influential of my lifetime. For all sorts of reasons, Stig. I mean, firstly, he's won 15 majors in golf, the second highest tally. And when he came onto the scene in the late 1990s, he completely upended golf in the way he played, his audacity, his willing to take on difficult shots, his willingness to go for clutch putts at an incredible pace, even though the ball might have gone a long way past the hole. He had complete oozing conviction in his own talents, partly, of course, because he started so young. That's the other aspect of Tiger Woods, a bit like Mozart as a pianist and as a composer. He started at the age of 3. He had played about 5,000 hours of golf by the age of 5. You know, he was a prodigy. But this, of course, had lots of psychological problems later in life, the monomania, the relationship, the unhealthy relationship with his father. But I think the most significant thing about Woods is he's really, along with Michael Jordan, the first sportsman to turn himself into a billboard for big multinational companies. And he made far more money off the golf course than he made on it. And it's just going to be fascinating, Stig, to see him playing again at this Augusta Masters. He's unlikely to win, but I just love the fact that he's coming back.
But it's interesting because you mentioned Jordan. Jordan was almost pathological in his competitiveness. He came back after retirement as a mistake. He had such a belief in himself and a willingness to crush the competition. He came back for the Washington Wizards and was rubbish and actually had to step away in the end. He couldn't admit to himself that he wasn't able to compete. And I wonder if Tiger Woods has that. There's a kind of, maybe it's an unwillingness to face facts. He shouldn't be here. He doesn't need to be there. He's probably not going to win. But presumably some part of his mind, you think, Matthew, thinks, well, if I'm here, I've got a chance.
This is the interesting thing about conviction, is it's one of the things that galvanizes you to work hard, to wake up early, this belief that you can become the greatest basketball player of all time or the greatest golfer of all time. It gives you what psychologists call self-efficacy. The downside of it is you don't know when you're beaten. And it means that Jordan, as you say, he came back too often. Muhammad Ali had tremendously damaging health implications because he continued to fight, believing he could beat Larry Holmes and Trevor Berbick when he was way past his best. Sugar Ray Leonard followed the same trajectory. It's much more dangerous in boxing, of course. It happens with financial traders who take big bets and then can't sell stocks that are losing money because they think it's going to bounce back. So I think you're absolutely right. The psychology of it's tremendously interesting. But at least in this case, Woods can play. And if he does lose, I think he's 66-1 outsider to win. At least he can say he's played and there won't be any physical or financial damage.
Do you think this is a sign of a troubled person, though? I mean, how admirable is this at one level? Because you talk about this self-efficacy, and that's very true. But ultimately, if you were content in life and you're a multimillionaire, you've won 15 majors, you're arguably the greatest golf player of all time, certainly of your own generation. Would a happy, satisfied person not be there?
What worries me a bit, Stig, is a kind of new genre of columnizing and literature, which says, self-improvement, self-efficacy, giving it everything is somehow a negative. We should be balanced. We should sip lattes and stroke our chins. And I think that's good for a lot of people.
Yes,
our species benefit. Our species benefits from people of high conviction. If you think of our ancestors who decided to leave Africa, that was a decision of incredible conviction and sacrifice. You look at the computer on which I'm currently talking to you, developed by people who made incredible sacrifices. The Wright brothers, read about their story, read about Sir Isaac Newton, read about Florence Nightingale, Marie Curie. All of those, read about any great entrepreneur. They sometimes fail, but they confer a massive blessing on the species. I think the distinctive part about humanity is a willingness of certain individuals to go beyond and above what's perhaps even in their interests. And as a consequence, they might not have the happiest life, but they confer massive benefits on the rest of us.
But I would count that, and you will disagree with this, Matthew, from what you've just said, but I would count that as a fail then, because actually the first responsibility of your life is not to the species, it's to have happiness, it's to achieve peace, it's to achieve a sense of satisfaction, it's being able to sleep at night. Look, your partner that you've managed to stay with because you haven't gone crazily cheating on her over the last 15 years, you've got got peace, and maybe that's the responsibility. Maybe he's missing out on something. He might confer a great benefit to the game of golf, but can he sleep at night?
We look at Edward Lee Mallory, the great adventurer. He wrote beautifully, as well as having a tremendous appetite for risk and adventure. And he said, what is life except to go on these great adventures, upwards and forever upwards? And he died young. He paid a tremendous price. His family paid a price. But was it a life poorly lived? I'm not sure. It's a very deep philosophical question, that. I think a lot of people who give something and they devote their lives to it, they do develop a certain type of satisfaction. And, I think for some people, a life of balance, Johnny Wilkinson or Steve Redgrave or Paula Radcliffe, a life of balance where they don't fulfill this incredible, unique talent with which they were bestowed. In some senses, you might say, yes, it was a nicer life. It was a more balanced life. But was it an admirable life? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I could talk deep philosophy forever, Matthew Syed, but we better leave it there. Lovely to speak to you.